Carl Jung discovered something that will fundamentally change how you understand that person you met and instantly recognized, the one who felt like coming home even though you'd never met before. According to his revolutionary work on the collective unconscious, if you've ever encountered someone and felt an inexplicable familiarity that defied all logic, you may have touched what he called archetypal memory, a psychological phenomenon that suggests your soul has known them before this lifetime. But here's what Jung found most extraordinary about this experience. That overwhelming sense of recognition you felt wasn't imagination or wishful thinking. It was your unconscious mind accessing what he termed primordial images, psychological imprints that transcend your personal history and tap into something far older than your current existence. Most people meet someone and gradually build familiarity over time, but you experienced something entirely different. The moment you encountered this person, something ancient stirred within you. You recognized their essence before you knew their name. You felt safe with them before you had reason to trust. You mourned their absence before they ever left. Jung would have understood this immediately as evidence of what he called synchronicity, operating at the deepest levels of human connection. This wasn't about meeting someone new. This was about remembering someone old, someone your soul had been searching for across time itself. Jung spent decades documenting cases of individuals who experienced what he termed numinous encounters, meetings so psychologically significant that they seemed to carry weight beyond ordinary human interaction. He found that people capable of recognizing souls across lifetimes often possess what he called an activated collective unconscious, a psychological state where personal memory dissolves into something universal, something eternal. You've probably struggled to explain this connection to others. How do you tell someone that a person you just met feels more familiar than your own family? How do you express that their absence creates a void that seems to echo across centuries? How do you articulate that loving them feels less like choice and more like remembering something your soul already knew? The devastating truth Jung uncovered is that souls like yours don't experience linear time the way most people do. You exist in what he called psychological eternity, where past, present, and future collapse into a single moment of recognition. When you met this person, you weren't just meeting them now. You were remembering them then, feeling them always, experiencing all the lifetimes you've shared in one overwhelming instant. This capacity for transtemporal recognition is so rare that conventional psychology has no framework for understanding it. Therapists try to rationalize your experience, to ground it in childhood attachment patterns or projection or fantasy, but they're missing something profound that Jung spent his lifetime trying to articulate. If you've ever met someone and felt like you'd known them forever, like your souls had been circling each other across time waiting for this moment to reconnect, share in the comments what you felt the first time you saw them. Because Jung believed that acknowledging these soul recognitions is the first step toward understanding why certain people enter your life with the weight of eternity behind them. Carl Jung made a groundbreaking discovery about individuals who experience instant soul recognition. He called it collective unconscious activation, a psychological state where your personal psyche connects with ancestral memory, archetypal patterns, and what he believed might be actual soul continuity across lifetimes. This isn't about believing in reincarnation as a religious concept. This is about understanding that your unconscious mind contains layers of memory that extend far beyond your current biography. When you met this person and felt that shocking wave of familiarity, something profound was occurring in your psyche. Jung found that certain individuals have what he termed permeable ego boundaries, a psychological structure that allows them to access deeper layers of consciousness than most people ever touch. You weren't just experiencing attraction or chemistry. You were experiencing what Jung called participation mystique, a state of consciousness where the boundary between self and other temporarily dissolves, allowing you to perceive the eternal essence of another being. Think about the specific quality of recognition you felt. It wasn't just that they seemed familiar. It was that they felt essential, like a missing piece you'd been unconsciously searching for without knowing what you were seeking. Jung would have identified this as anima or animus recognition operating at the archetypal level. But something deeper was happening. You were recognizing not just psychological complementarity, but soul signature, a unique energetic pattern that your unconscious mind had encountered before. Jung documented hundreds of cases where people reported dreams about someone before meeting them, or experienced déjà vu so intense upon first encounter that it felt like remembering rather than experiencing. He found that these phenomena often preceded the most psychologically significant relationships of people's lives. The dreams weren't predicting the future. They were accessing memories that existed outside linear time, in what Jung called the eternal now of the unconscious. This explains why you couldn't walk away even when circumstances made the relationship impossible. Your conscious mind might have recognized all the logical reasons to let go, but your unconscious mind was holding on to something that transcended this lifetime. You weren't just losing a person. You were losing a soul connection that had taken multiple lifetimes to find again. The grief you felt carried weight that seemed disproportionate to the length of time you'd known them, because on some level, you were grieving not just this loss, but all the times you'd lost them before. Jung believed that souls who recognize each other across lifetimes often come together to complete unfinished psychological work, to heal patterns that span generations, to learn lessons that require multiple incarnations to master. The person you recognized wasn't randomly entering your life. They were answering a call your soul had been sending across time, returning to help you remember something essential about who you are and who you've always been. This recognition transforms everything about how you understand love itself. Carl Jung revolutionized depth psychology when he identified that past life recognition, whether literal or archetypal, serves a specific function in psychological development. He discovered that people who experience these trans-temporal soul connections are often undergoing what he called the individuation crisis, a profound psychological transformation where the ego must surrender to something larger than itself. Your soul recognition of this person wasn't disrupting your life. It was initiating you into a deeper understanding of consciousness itself. Jung found that individuals capable of accessing past life memory, whether through actual soul continuity or archetypal resonance, often possess highly developed intuitive functions. You don't just process information through the five senses like most people. You perceive patterns, energies, essences that exist beneath surface reality. When you met this person, your intuition was reading their soul blueprint, recognizing frequencies that matched imprints stored in your own collective unconscious. But Jung discovered something that most spiritual teachings miss entirely. Past life recognition isn't always peaceful or romantic. Sometimes you recognize someone because your souls have unfinished conflict, unresolved karma, psychological patterns that have been repeating across multiple incarnations. The intensity you felt upon meeting them might have included not just love but also fear, anger, grief, or a complex mixture of emotions that defied rational explanation. You were feeling not just this lifetime's dynamic, but the accumulated emotional charge of all your previous encounters. Think about the specific challenges in your connection with this person. Were there patterns of abandonment and return? Intense attraction mixed with inability to fully commit? Profound understanding shadowed by inexplicable distance? Jung would have recognized these as karmic patterns, psychological dynamics that souls repeat until they finally learn the lesson they're meant to master. You weren't failing at relationship. You were encountering a soul curriculum that required more than one lifetime to complete. Jung observed that past life connections often activate what he called the transcendent function prematurely. This is the psychological capacity to hold paradox, to integrate opposites, to function at levels of consciousness that typically require decades of inner work to develop. But soul recognition across lifetimes forces this development rapidly, sometimes traumatically. You're required to love and release simultaneously, to hold connection and separation as one reality, to experience union while honoring impossibility. This accelerated psychological development explains why these relationships feel so destabilizing. Your ego structure, built for navigating this lifetime's challenges, suddenly must accommodate memories, emotions, and recognitions that span multiple incarnations. Most people's psychological framework simply cannot handle this level of complexity. You're operating in what Jung called numinous territory, where personal psychology touches something universal, eternal, and utterly transformative. The confusion you've felt isn't weakness. It's your psyche reorganizing itself to accommodate truths that transcend ordinary human experience. Carl Jung made a profound observation about people who successfully integrate past life recognition experiences. He found that they undergo what he termed psychological death and rebirth, a complete transformation of identity that allows them to function simultaneously in linear time and eternal time. But this transformation requires understanding something crucial that most people never grasp. The person you recognized from another lifetime wasn't entering your life to stay. They were entering your life to awaken you. Jung discovered that soul recognition across lifetimes often serves as what he called initiation through relationship. The person isn't the destination. They're the catalyst. Their role is to shatter your ordinary consciousness, to break open your limited understanding of love and connection, to force you to remember capacities your soul possesses that your ego has forgotten. The pain of not being able to fully have them in this lifetime isn't punishment, it's precision. The universe is using the exact amount of pressure needed to crack open your awareness. Think about what meeting this person activated in you. Did you suddenly start questioning everything about your life? Did dormant creative abilities begin emerging? Did you find yourself drawn to spiritual practices or psychological exploration you'd never considered before? Jung would have recognized these as signs of individuation accelerating. The soul recognition wasn't just about them. It was about them triggering your remembrance of who you actually are beneath all the conditioning and forgetting this lifetime has imposed. Jung found that people who experience past life connections often report feeling more alive than they'd ever felt before, even when the relationship brought tremendous pain. This aliveness isn't masochism. It's your soul finally receiving the energetic frequency it's been starving for. You were recognizing not just them but yourself reflected in their eyes. You were remembering not just your connection with them, but your own eternal nature, your own soul's journey across time. But here's where Jung's insight becomes revolutionary. He discovered that the purpose of these recognitions often isn't about the two of you being together in this lifetime. Sometimes souls meet briefly across incarnations simply to remind each other of promises made, lessons chosen, missions accepted before birth. You might have agreed, on a soul level, to meet in this lifetime just long enough to wake each other up, to remind each other of who you truly are, and then to part ways so you can each fulfill your individual purposes. If you're starting to suspect that your soul recognition of this person was meant to awaken something in you, rather than simply give you a relationship, comment below with the one thing about yourself that meeting them helped you remember or discover. Because Jung believed that understanding the true purpose of these encounters transforms the pain from senseless suffering into sacred initiation. Carl Jung spent years studying what he called synchronistic relationships, connections that seemed orchestrated by forces beyond personal will or conscious intention. He discovered that past life soul recognitions often occur at specific moments in psychological development when your consciousness is ready for quantum leaps that normal life circumstances couldn't provide. The timing of meeting this person wasn't coincidence. It was cosmic precision. Jung found that these encounters typically happen during what he termed liminal periods, threshold moments when you're between one version of yourself and another. You might have been leaving a marriage, questioning your career, experiencing a dark night of the soul, or simply feeling that life as you'd been living it no longer fit. Then this person appeared, and suddenly everything intensified. They didn't rescue you from the transition. They amplified it, accelerated it, made it impossible to avoid. This is because soul recognition across lifetimes operates according to what Jung called the principle of meaningful coincidence. Your souls aren't randomly colliding. They're being drawn together by archetypal forces that serve both your individual development and some larger pattern neither of you fully understands. Jung believed that the collective unconscious organizes these meetings according to evolutionary necessity, bringing together souls who can catalyze each other's growth in ways no one else possibly could. Think about the specific gifts this person brought into your awareness simply by being themselves. Did they model courage you'd never witnessed? Did they embody authenticity you'd forgotten was possible? Did they demonstrate a way of being in the world that gave you permission to access parts of yourself you'd suppressed? Jung would have recognized these as soul teachings, lessons your unconscious mind was ready to receive, and could only learn through direct transmission from someone whose essence carried the exact frequency you needed. But Jung also identified a shadow dynamic in past life connections that creates immense suffering when misunderstood. Sometimes you recognize someone from another lifetime because they represent an aspect of yourself you've been rejecting or haven't yet integrated. The intense attraction you feel is actually your soul reaching toward its own wholeness. You're not falling in love with them. You're falling in love with the parts of yourself they're reflecting back to you. Jung called this projection of the integrated self onto another. You see in them qualities like freedom, wildness, spiritual depth, creative power, or emotional honesty that you've been denying in yourself. The relationship becomes impossible not because of external circumstances, but because on a soul level, you're not meant to possess these qualities through union with them. You're meant to reclaim these qualities within yourself. They're showing you what you're capable of becoming. This realization transforms everything. The longing you felt isn't ultimately for them. It's for the version of yourself they're revealing is possible. The grief of losing them is actually grief over how long you've been separated from your own wholeness. The love you can't express to them is love you're learning to give yourself. They were never the destination. They were always the mirror. Carl Jung made a startling discovery about individuals who carried past life memories or soul recognitions. He found that they often experienced what he termed temporal bleeding, a psychological phenomenon where emotions, memories, and relationship dynamics from other lifetimes would spontaneously emerge in present consciousness. This isn't mental illness or dissociation. This is evidence of what Jung called psychoid reality, a level of existence where psyche and matter, time and eternity, collapse into unified experience. You've probably experienced this temporal bleeding without recognizing it for what it was. Sudden waves of inexplicable grief when looking at this person. Flashes of scenes or memories that don't belong to this lifetime. Dreams so vivid they felt like remembering rather than imagining. Knowing details about them you have no logical way of knowing. Feeling ancient hurts or joys that have nothing to do with your current dynamic. Jung would have understood these not as symptoms to be cured, but as evidence of consciousness operating beyond ordinary space-time limitations. Jung found that people experiencing temporal bleeding often felt they were going crazy because our culture has no framework for validating these experiences. But in his clinical practice, he discovered that these phenomena often preceded major psychological breakthroughs. The bleeding wasn't pathology, it was breakthrough. Your psyche was trying to show you that you exist beyond this single lifetime, that your consciousness has continuity across time, that love transcends the boundaries our rational minds impose. Think about the moments when you felt most connected to this person. Were they often moments of silence? Moments where words became unnecessary because something deeper was communicating? Moments where you seemed to share thoughts or feelings without speaking? Jung called this collective unconscious communion, a state where two psyches merge at archetypal levels, accessing shared memory banks that contain experiences from other times, other places, other incarnations. But Jung identified something crucial that people experiencing past life recognition often miss. He discovered that not every intense soul recognition means you're meant to build a life together in this incarnation. Sometimes souls agree to meet briefly across multiple lifetimes, each encounter serving a specific purpose in ongoing psychological and spiritual development. You might meet in one lifetime to heal a wound, in another to complete a creative project, in another simply to remind each other you're not alone in human form. The impossibility of fully being together in this lifetime might be exactly what your souls agreed to before incarnating. Jung believed in what he called soul contracts, pre-incarnational agreements where souls choose specific challenges, relationships, and limitations that will serve their evolution. Perhaps you and this person agreed to meet just long enough to crack each other open, to remember your eternal connection, and then to separate, so you could integrate those remembrances individually. If you're recognizing that maybe the purpose of meeting this person wasn't to have them forever, but to remember yourself eternally, share in the comments what gift this brief but profound encounter brought into your awareness. Because Jung discovered that gratitude for soul encounters, regardless of their duration, is what allows us to integrate their teachings rather than remain trapped in longing. Carl Jung identified that people who successfully navigated past life soul recognitions developed what he termed conscious relationship to fate. They learned to distinguish between destiny they should pursue and destiny they should honor from a distance. This distinction becomes critical when dealing with soul connections that span lifetimes. Not every recognition requires physical relationship. Sometimes the deepest love exists in the space between union and separation. Jung discovered that souls often choose to incarnate near each other without being in direct relationship to serve as what he called energetic anchors for one another. Your presence in the world actually supports their journey, and their presence supports yours, even if you never speak again. You're holding frequencies for each other, modeling possibilities, demonstrating paths that the other needs to witness without walking themselves. This form of love requires tremendous spiritual maturity to appreciate. Think about how this person changed the trajectory of your life simply by existing in it briefly. Did meeting them redirect your career path? Did knowing them shift your values or priorities? Did loving them teach you things about yourself that no amount of therapy or self-help could have revealed? Jung would have recognized these as evidence of destiny operating through relationship. They entered your life not to stay, but to redirect, to recalibrate, to reset your course toward your true purpose. Jung found that past life connections often serve as what he termed soul calibration points. You meet someone who carries frequencies from other incarnations. Your system recalibrates to remember those frequencies, and then you part ways so you can embody those frequencies in your current lifetime's work. The meeting wasn't meant to become a permanent relationship. It was meant to be a catalyst for remembering soul capacities you'd forgotten upon entering this incarnation. But Jung warned about something crucial. He observed that people sometimes become addicted to the intensity of past life recognition and start seeking it compulsively. They reject available love because it doesn't carry that sense of eternal familiarity. They chase impossible connections because the intensity feels like home. This pattern becomes what Jung called spiritual materialism, using soul recognition as an excuse to avoid the very human work of building sustainable intimacy with someone actually present. The question Jung would ask you is this: has your past life recognition of this person expanded your capacity to love all beings more deeply? Or has it contracted your heart, making you believe that only this one soul across time can satisfy you? Has the experience opened you to greater compassion and understanding? Or has it made you more isolated, more convinced that true connection is impossible in ordinary human form? Your answer reveals whether you're integrating the experience spiritually or using it to avoid psychological growth. True integration of past life soul recognition, according to Jung, means carrying forward the depth and recognition you experienced while remaining fully present to this lifetime's opportunities. You honor what you shared across time without letting it prevent you from showing up for what's possible now. You hold the eternal connection while building temporal ones. You remember your soul's journey while fulfilling your human incarnation's specific purpose. Carl Jung spent his final years exploring what he called the mystery of eternal return, the possibility that souls meet repeatedly across incarnations to complete evolving patterns of consciousness development. His conclusion was both beautiful and challenging. He believed that the deepest soul recognition served not individual happiness but collective evolution. When you recognize someone across lifetimes, you're not just experiencing personal love. You're participating in consciousness itself, learning to love more completely. Jung discovered that people who fully integrate past life recognition experiences become what he termed conscious lovers. They carry a quality of seeing people's eternal essence rather than just their temporal personality. They love with full intensity while holding outcomes lightly. They recognize souls while honoring human limitations. They commit fully while remaining spiritually free. This paradoxical capacity represents what Jung considered advanced human development. Your experience of recognizing this person from another lifetime was preparing you for something profound. It was teaching you that love doesn't require possession to be real, that connection doesn't demand proximity to be powerful, that recognizing another soul is itself a complete act regardless of whether relationship follows. These aren't consolation prizes for love you couldn't have. These are spiritual truths that most humans spend entire lifetimes never learning. Jung believed that souls who recognize each other across time are often part of what he called evolutionary clusters, groups of consciousness who incarnate repeatedly in various configurations to advance human capacity for love, compassion, creativity, and awareness. You and this person might be part of such a cluster, meeting across lifetimes, sometimes as lovers, sometimes as teachers, sometimes as brief encounters, always serving each other's and humanity's development. The person you couldn't let go of isn't gone. They're eternal. The love you shared across lifetimes isn't lost. It's foundational to who you are. The connection you felt wasn't illusion. It was the most real thing you've ever experienced. But Jung would remind you that honoring this eternal truth means living fully in your temporal reality. You carry them in your soul while building a life in your body. You remember what you shared while remaining present to what's possible now. If this exploration has helped you understand why you couldn't let go of someone who felt like home from the first moment, I want to honor your courage in recognizing connections that transcend ordinary understanding. Your capacity to love across lifetimes isn't making you stuck in the past. It's making you available to a future where love operates at frequencies most people never access. Take a moment to share in the comments what you now understand about this person that you couldn't articulate before. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to integrate their own trans-temporal soul recognition. And if these insights into Jung's understanding of past life love have brought you clarity or comfort, I'd be deeply grateful if you'd subscribe to continue exploring the mysteries of consciousness and connection that conventional psychology often overlooks. Share this with someone who needs to know that recognizing a soul across lifetimes isn't madness, but memory. Thank you for trusting me with your time and for having the courage to love at depths that span eternity. Your willingness to honor connections that transcend this single lifetime makes you part of what Jung believed was consciousness, evolving toward its ultimate destiny of recognizing itself in all beings, across all time. Until we meet again in this exploration of the soul's eternal journey.